Hi, this is MJ, and in today's tutorial I'll be showing you how to make a cabled stocking. The yarn that I'm using is Mary Maxim Starlet. This is a worsted weight yarn. It's 100% acrylic, and I'm using 100 gram balls, and they have 180 yards per ball. The color that I'm using is natural, but you can use whatever colors. They have a huge variety of different colors to choose from. And the hook that I'll be using is a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. And this is a streamlined Capricorn hook from Furls Crochet. This is an intermediate level pattern. You may find these cables to be tricky, especially if you're a beginner. You want to review your basic stitches before attempting this pattern. Also, you can slow down the video by clicking on the gear icon and selecting the playback speed. So we're going to begin with a magic ring. Wrap it around your index finger 3 times. We're going to take our crochet hook, sliding it through all 3 of those loops. Just take the first loop, pulling it through, and I'm going to chain 2. So now we'll work into the ring, and I'll be working 10 double crochet. Okay, so once you have your 10 stitches, I'm going to take my tail and pull it, and you're going to see that only 1 loop is going to pull in. So just take the loop that's pulled, give it a tug, it's going to pull the other loop, and then just take your tail and pull. So that's going to make a nice tight circle. It's not going to come undone. We're going to slip stitch in the top of our first double crochet to join. I'm going to chain 1, and that's not included as a stitch, and then I'm going to work 2 front post double crochets around each stitch. So we're going under, so we're going back and then back up to front. I'm going to yarn over, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. Now you want to go back around the same stitch, so we're yarning over, going under, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. And we're doing that around each stitch. So 2 front post double crochets per stitch, so that we have a total for this round now of 20 stitches. So each round is going to increase by 10 stitches, and we will be increasing all the way up to 60. So I'm going to complete this around, and I'll meet you at the end. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. I'm going to slip stitch in the top of the first front post double crochet to join. I'm going to chain 1. And now we're going to increase every other stitch. So we'll work a front post double crochet around our first stitch, and then we'll work 2 around the next stitch. One around the next, and 2 around the next. And I'm going to repeat that all the way around. We will be ending with 30 stitches, going up another 10. Okay, so I'm going to slip stitch in the first front post double crochet to join, chain 1. And now for the next round, we'll work 2 and then do an increase. So this is how an increase pattern works when you're evenly going up the same number of stitches that you start with. So just a little tip on that. If you started with 11 stitches, each round would go up 11 stitches following this pattern. If you started with 12, each round would go up 12. We started with 10, so each round will go up 10, providing you follow this increase pattern. So what we do for this round is we'll work a front post double crochet in now the next 2, And then in the next stitch, we will do that increase. And you can see it's that second stitch of the increase. So it's really easy to follow this pattern when you're increasing. So the next round will be 3 stitches and then an increase, and you'll be able to see again that that's the second stitch of the increase, and you just continue in that manner, increasing as large as you need to go. So for this pattern, we're going up to 60 stitches. Each round increases by 10, and that also means that we'll need 6 rounds to work up to 60 stitches. So front post double in the next 2, and then 2 in the next. So this round will go up to 40 stitches. Okay, so I've worked all the way around, slip stitching in the top of the first front post double, chain 1, and now this time we're going to work 3 and then do our double. So front post 1, 2, 3, and then 2 in the next. Okay, and now repeat that all the way around, increasing to 50. Okay, slip stitch to join, chain 1, and this will be our last increase round. And again, it's really easy just to look at this first section. We're going to do 4 and then 2 in the next. So front post double crochet in each of the next 4. And then 2 front post double crochets in the next. Okay, and repeat that all the way around. Make sure when you complete this round that you do have 60 stitches. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. We're going to slip stitch in our first front post double to join, chain 1, and now we're going to start into the cable pattern. So our repeat pattern for this design is going to be 12 stitches. We have a 9-stitch cable, and then we have 3 stitches that are in between. So I know I get the question asked a lot about changing the size. So you could do it a few different ways. You could work this up in maybe a thinner yarn, and that would give you a smaller stocking, or the multiple is 12. So you wouldn't be able to just increase one more row and it be bigger because your multiple is not going to divide out. 70 will not divide out by 12. So you need to keep that in mind. Now, if you started with a 12 stitch, you could change the pattern a little bit easier based on your rounds. But for this pattern, 60 divides out by 5. So it works out perfectly for our stitch repeat, and we'll have 5 cables in total for this stocking. So we're going to begin with a treble. So we're yarning over twice. I'm going to skip the first 3 stitches, and then I'm going to work a front post treble around the next 3. So yarn over twice, going around the stitch, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over twice, and work another front post treble. So now we'll be working back into the skip stitches, and we're going to be going over top. So this is sort of the easier part of the cable. So we'll yarn over twice. We're going back to the first skip stitch, working a front post treble, yarn over twice. Again, this video is not meant to teach you these stitches. You should be familiar with them already. So you may want to review these before this pattern if I'm going too quickly. Okay, and then the next 3 stitches, because this is a 9-stitch cable, we work a front post double into the next 3. This cable is worked over 4 rows. So this will be the first row of our cable pattern. And now there are some different options for your 3 stitches in between. I've worked back post double crochets, and that gives you this look where your stitches look like this, but you could also work them in extended single crochets if you wanted to have a more flat appearance. So really it's kind of up to you. I'm going to, because I've already made one with the back post, I'm going to continue with that, but I think it would look good following the pattern of my blanket and pillow that will be worked with, that is worked with extended single crochets in between. Okay, so then I finish off with 3 front post doubles. And now in the next 3 stitches, we're going to work back post double crochets. So yarn over. Now we're going from back to front, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, pull through 2. Or if you prefer the flatter look of extended single crochets, you could do those for these 3 stitches as well, and that would look similar to the cabled blanket and the cabled pillow pattern that I've also released in this collection. So now we're coming to another cable, so we're just repeating what we started with. So we're skipping those 3 stitches, yarn over twice, work a front post treble across the next 3. Okay, and then I'm going to work front post trebles back into the first skipped 3. So yarn over twice, and we're going to the first skipped. Just working through this cable again with you. Okay, and then a front post double crochet into the next 3. So this is the 9 stitches of our cable, and then we have the 3 stitches that are worked in between. And for this pattern, I'm doing them as front or back post double crochets. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, so I'm going to complete that all the way around. You'll end up having 5 cables, and we'll be ending with those back posts. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. I've ended with the back posts. So now we need to find that first front post or treble, front post treble, and we're going to slip stitch into it, chain 1. And now this round's a little bit easier. We're just working across our cable in front post double crochets. So make sure you get those ones that are tucked in there. So front post double crochet into the next 9. So you want to count so that you don't miss any of these stitches. There's 4, 5, 6, and then So then when we get to our back post, you're still going to continue to work back post double crochets. So in the next 3. But then once you get to the cable, you'll work 9 front post. And you'll see these ones are going to be tucked in behind, so make sure to pull them and count so that you don't miss a stitch. Always be pulling those stitches apart and count as you go. So you're going to continue now in this manner all the way around, working 9 front post double crochets and then 3 back post double crochets. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. I've slip stitched to join. I'll chain 1, and now we're working on our 3rd round of the cable. This round is a little bit more difficult. So let's get started with it. So here are the first 3 stitches of the cable. We're going to work a front post double crochet into each of those stitches. Now we're going to skip the next 3 and work a front post treble in the next 3. Okay, so now this time we won't be working across the top like we did on that first round of the cable. We need to work in behind, and this is what gives us that intertwining cable look. So we're going to yarn over twice, and we need to access these stitches that we've skipped working in behind. So I like to push my work forward so that I can expose them. And then I'm going to go working around that first skip stitch, working that front post treble. So it's just a little trickier to get in at those stitches. That's all. Just slows you down a little bit when you're working on the cable. And you want to make sure that you're working in behind, not in front, or the cable is not going to look proper. Okay, and then you push this forward and you see now it's going up underneath. It gives us that really cool look. Now we'll work back post double crochet into the next 3. So that's repetitive throughout the entire pattern. The 3 stitches in between the cable are always worked back post doubles. So now we're coming to the next cable. Again, you want to do a front post double in the first 3. Okay, and then we have to do the more complicated stitches here. So we're working a front post treble, we're skipping 3, work a front post treble in the next 3. Okay, and then we need to work back into those skip stitches. So I like to yarn over twice, push my work to the front. And then front post trebles into those skip stitches. Back post in the next 3. Okay, and now we'll just repeat that all the way around, and then I'll meet you up for that 4th round of the cable. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. We'll slip stitch to join, chain 1, and now this will be the easier round of the cable as well because we're just working across the cable in front post double crochets. So just like round 2, we'll work a front post double in the next 9 stitches. So there's 3, 4, 5, 6, and now don't miss these 3 in behind because they're tucked right in there, so it's easy to skip over them. 7, 8, 9, and then back post double crochets in the next 3. Okay, so still looking pretty flat, but because we are no longer increasing and we're staying at 60 stitches, it's eventually going to form its shape. If it's not, make sure that you are counting your stitches to make sure you aren't messing up somewhere. So let's just take a look at this other stocking here that I've already worked on. So now we're going to want to work a repeat of 3 of our cable sections before we get to the heel opening. So if you look at this here, 1, 2, 3, it shows us that we have 3 repeats of that 4 round repeat of the cable. So here's our toe section, which was 6 rounds. Here we have 4 rounds of cable, another 4 rounds of cable, another 4 rounds of cable. So what I want you to do before we reach that heel opening section, you're going to repeat those 4 rounds that we just worked through, and you're going to do that twice. So for the cable, in total, you're going to have 12 rounds of cable plus your starting 6 rounds. So we're going to work through that now off camera, and then I'm going to meet you back up for the heel opening section. So you want to complete this round working that 4th round of the cable and then repeat rounds 1 through 4 2 more times. Okay, so I'm going to work that and then I'll meet you up for the next section. Okay, so I have worked up my repeats, so I'm getting to the heel opening. So what I'm going to do is I need to chain out enough to get across this section as well as this cable. Okay, so that's a total of 21 stitches. So I'm going to chain out 21. So that's going to account for all of these stitches that we're skipping. So that's going to bring us over to our back post. So work our back post double crochet. Across the next 3, and now we're back into our cable repeat. So we're working the same repeat. We're back to that 1st round of our cable. So we just need to hop right back into it. So I'm going to yarn over twice. We're skipping the first 3. Yarn over twice, working back into the skipped. Because this is all repetitive now, I'm going to work across until we get to that chain. Okay, so I'm going to continue working. This is now our front post double in the next 3. So I'm going to continue working around in our established cable pattern, and then I'm going to meet you up over at the chain. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. We're ending with our back posts, and now we need to slip stitch to join. We're going to slip stitch in that first chain, going to chain 1. And we have to work back down into that first chain because it counts as one of these stitches. So we're going to work double crochets across the chain. Now you can even, now this is going into the back loop of the chain, but if you want that nice clear edge, you can always work into the back bump, and I'll show you how that's going to look. So we're going to double crochet. I don't want to make things too complicated for you. If this is hard to do, then you can just do it how I first showed you. But if you work into that back bump, it gives more of the look of a stitch. Okay, so it looks like I missed one there. It's a good idea to count across them and then make sure that you don't miss any. And then what this will do is when we go to do that heel, you'll have more of a stitch to work into instead of just a loop. But I don't want to overcomplicate it, so if this is difficult, then just work into that back loop of the chain. That's fine as well. So I'm going to work across that, making sure I have 21 double crochets. Okay, so I have 21, so I know I'm good. Worked all the way across here, and now we're to our back posts again. So I'm just going to continue right with the pattern. So 3 back posts, and then we're into the second round of the cable repeat. So we are working front post double crochets across the next 9. And back post in the next 3. So I'm just going to continue around in our pattern, and I'll meet you up for the next round. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. I'm going to slip stitch in our first double crochet to join, chain 1. So now we have to work the third round of our cable, and we can start working that cable pattern right along here. So we're going to front post double crochet into the next 3. Then we need to skip 3, yarn over twice, front post treble in the next 3. Okay, so now we have to go in behind because this is the third round of the cable. So yarn over twice and front post treble into those skipped double crochets. Okay, and then push your work forward just to make sure you've done it correctly, you've worked into the correct stitches. Then we'll back post in the next 3. Because what we want is just to continue in this pattern. So we've made the opening for the heel, but we're just going to continue working our pattern like usual to get the length of our stocking now. We want it to just continue like there was no disruption, even though we made this big hole here. Okay, so now we skip the next 3. Work front post trebles in the next, oh no, we don't. Already messing it up myself. So we work a front post double in the next 3. And then we skip 3. Work a front post treble in the next 3. Okay, and then we work back into those skipped stitches. And this is definitely intermediate to even advanced doing these cables. They are tricky. So you do need to have those skills to do this pattern. Okay, and then always just double check, make sure you've done them correctly, you've worked into the correct stitches. And then the pattern is already established for us, so it makes it a little easier, whoops, to keep going. So just continue around in the pattern. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. I'm going to slip stitch into the first front post double to join, chain 1, and now we're into the 4th round of the cable, and at this point it's going to be pretty straightforward because we've already got this pattern here established. So we're going to work front post doubles across the next 9 stitches. And then back post in the next 3, and you're going to repeat this all the way around. So we're really just back to where we were originally working this pattern in the round. So the heel won't get done until the end. We'll come back and we're going to work on the heel. And like I say, even if you decide you want your stocking to go this way, I really don't think you're going to notice that join. It really does get hidden into those stitches. So it's not going to be a big deal either way you decide to hang this stocking. So you should be working another 6 repeats of the cable pattern, and then we'll meet back up to do the join as you go ribbed cuff across the top. You can do it in the same color, you could change out the color, you could do it in fur, really whatever you prefer for this. Okay, so once you've finished your cable repeats, and I like to count again from the bottom, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 cables in total. And now what we're going to do, I've already slip stitched to join here. We're going to chain 1 and work single crochets in each stitch around. So I've worked around a total of 60. We're going to slip stitch to join. And now I'm going to do a join as you go ribbed cuff. Now, if you wanted, you could do fur, something different for your cuff, but I'm just showing you in this tutorial how to do a single crochet in the back loop only ribbed cuff for this design. I do have another cabled stocking on YouTube that you can watch that only has the one large cable, and it has a fur top if you prefer that look. So I'm going to chain out a total of 30. So there's 2. Okay, so there's 30, and we need to do an additional chain for our turning chain, so 31 in total. Now we'll work single crochets down the chain. So 1 single crochet per chain. And we worked into the second chain from the hook, so you should have a total of 30 single crochets as you work down. Okay, so now we're going to skip that first stitch, and you can see it's the stitch that we have slip stitched into. You can see the little slip stitch right here. So this stitch accounts for this first row that we have crocheted. Now, when we're crocheting around the stocking, we're going to have the same number of rows as we have in stitches. So 60 rows for 60 stitches. So we're going to slip stitch into the next 2 along the base here of our stocking, that setup row. Now we're going to turn, and we're going to skip the 2 slip stitches. So 1, 2, and then in the single crochets, we're going to work a single crochet in the back loop only. So now we're going to work 2 more rows for those 2 slip stitches that we just made. So single crochet all the way up through the back loops only. Okay, and then when you get to the end, we're going to chain 1 and turn, working single crochets in the back loop only through each stitch. It's a good idea to count as you go to make sure that you don't lose a stitch. Okay, so I'm coming to the end here. Here's the last stitch. And now, I know this is confusing for some people where we slip stitch. You can see we've slip stitched already into this stitch. So you want to go into the next 2 now. So slip stitch, the next 2, turn, and then you're just going to keep repeating this all the way around. Make sure you skip those 2 slip stitches and go right into the stitch to keep working. So now we started with 1 row, we'll need to end with 1 row. So when you get all the way around, you'll only have 1 slip stitch remaining, and then you'll single crochet back up to the top. We'll be ending at this end. So it will take a little bit to get around our 60 rows in total. So I'm going to complete that off camera. And then we can meet back up again to work on finishing up the heel and adding some pom-poms or tassels to finish off the stocking. Okay, so I've been working away on my band, and I like to look at the ridges where you can see the full ridge, because for every full ridge you have 2 rows. So just to make sure that you are on track with your rows, you can count how many ridges you have, or just count by twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. And you should have 60 for this size. So now I'm going to chain 1, and then we're just going to slip stitch it together. It's going to be folded over, so we just want the slip stitch join to the outside, because we're going to fold this and then you won't see it. So I'm going to go through the back loop, going across to that starting chain, and work a slip stitch. And you're going to do this down through each stitch. Just make sure not to do that too tight. You want to keep it loose so you don't distort any of the stitches. You want it to just flow nicely. So I'm going to complete that now off camera. Okay, so once you've worked all the way down, we're just going to fasten off. Okay, and then you can weave this tail in. So you're going to want to use a yarn needle. And you can just weave through the stitches. Just make sure to hide them. You don't want it popping through the other side of your work. And always go back in the opposite direction to secure that tail. Okay, so now we have a nice, cozy, folded over ribbed cuff for our stocking. This yarn really works up nice and almost chunky. It seems really close almost to a bulky yarn, so it comes out really nice. Now, next we're going to want to finish up by completing our heel. So I like to lay the stocking out so that I'm looking at the heel opening, flattening it out this way. In the center, we're going to have the back posts or the extended single crochet, whatever stitch you decide to do here. And I am going to insert my hook in the center. So there's 3 stitches here. I'm going to insert it right here. You can add a slip knot onto that hook as we pull it through, just so it's a little bit more secure as we join in. And I like to chain 1. And now we're going to work post stitches around. So I'm going to work a front post, in each stitch across. So there's 2, 3, 10, and 11 stitches. Okay, so we should have 11, and back along this side you should have 10 because we had 21 stitches for our opening. So make sure to count here as you go to be sure you're on track. Then as we come to the corner, I want 1 front post double crochet. But because it looks like, see these 2 rows here, I'm going to go through just sort of joining them to pull that together. Otherwise, if we don't do anything here, we're going to have a big gap as we work around. Now, you should have 21 stitches going across. So just continue with those front post doubles going across each stitch. So I'm going to work those across. Okay, so we've worked across 21. We're coming to our other corner. We're going to do the same thing. You just want to sort of go pulling those rows kind of together as we okay. Now as we turn all the way around, we're going to be working across 10 stitches. So just continue working across. Okay, so you should have now in total worked around 44 stitches. So I'm going to slip stitch to join and chain 1. So we're going to start decreasing. But I'm going to work a front post in the first 2. And then I'm going to decrease the next 2. So you're going to go through, pull through 2, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 3. And that's how we'll do the front post double crochet decrease. So let's go through that again. A front post on the next 2. Sorry for the squeakiness. Now we're going to do the decrease. So yarn over, go through, pulling up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on the hook. Okay, so you're just going to continue that around. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. I've ended with a decrease. I'm going to slip stitch to join, chain 1, and at this point you could decrease it by going 1 and then decreasing the next 2 together, but I'm going to stick with my decrease pattern that I worked. So I'm going to continue again with 1 in each of the next 2 and then decrease. Whoops, just have to make sure that you get that decrease, go around. Okay, and I'm going to keep working around. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. This time I'm ending with that 1 stitch. Slip stitch to join, chain 1, and I'm going to continue decreasing this way. So I'm going to do 2, and then another decrease. Okay, and complete that around. Okay, so we're ending with 1 front post. And you should be down to 19 stitches now. We're going to slip stitch in our first front post to join, chain 1. And we're going to continue with this pattern. So 1, 2, decrease, the next 2. Okay, and I'm going to complete that all the way around. This time we'll be ending with 3. 1, 2, 3, slip stitch in our first front post to join, chain 1, and You could close your heel up at this point, or let's do one final decrease. And this time I'm going to do it a little bit tighter. So I'm going to go 1 and decrease the next 2 together. And that will bring us down to 10 stitches. But if you want the heel a little less pronounced, you could stop before that. Okay, so I'm ending with a decrease and we're down to 10 stitches. Going to slip stitch in the first front post to join. We can fasten off with a tail. And now we need to close this up. So this is how the heel is going, and even if you've worked extended single crochet, it's going to work the same way in these post stitches. And if you have any gapping that you're not happy with, you can always just sew it just to kind of fill in any gaps. Just going to weave through every other stitch here around. Okay, we can just close that up. And I just like to flatten it to get to weave around. Just to make sure it closes well. And then you can weave back in the opposite direction. Make sure you're happy with the heel. If you want that it's more flush, not to stick out, do less rounds. If you want it to be stick out even more, you could always do the decrease not so drastic and have it stick out a little bit more. So at this point, we can add some embellishments. You could add a personalized name to your stocking. I get my tags from Brick Bubble, so you could have your names custom put on the tag with different fonts. You can also use wooden name tags. You can get little wooden plates that you can just write the name. You could use chalkboard. There's so many different ways that you can customize. Also, you can add some tassels or pom-poms just to embellish your stocking a little bit more. I also like to use the tags for hanging the stocking, but you can use twine as well. Really, use whatever you have on hand, or if you like some of the ideas I'm showing you, you can always order and have these available. Probably still you can get them before Christmas or for next year. So here is the comparison: extended single crochet or the this ribbed line stitch that the back post gives you. Okay, so you can see the heel done here with our extended single crochet. We work it around the same way. So this just gives you the look of how it will look if you choose to do it this way. And there is a little bit of gapping in the odd spots, which you can just go in with your yarn needle and thread, and you can sew that up so you don't see any gapping. So because this looks good on both sides, you can really decide which way that you want your stocking, and any of these little gaps, just sew them up. And next I'm going to show you how to make a tassel to attach. I like to just take the yarn from the outside of the ball, and that sometimes when you're pulling it from the inside, it can be a little bit wavy and bunched up. So if you take it from the outside, it'll be a little bit smoother. Otherwise, you could steam the tassel when you're finished. You can play around with the length you want for your tassel, but I'm going to go with a measurement of 16 inches. I just like to take my measuring tape, measure that out, 16 inches, and then you can just start rolling off strands of yarn. And I like to do about 30. And just to make it a little bit easier so my pile doesn't get too big, I'll do 15 and then another 15. Now you can use yarn for this part, but I'm going to use twine just because I want to give it that little bit of a rustic touch. So just take off a long piece. And that was around 36 inches, but it's not really, it depends on how much you'd like to hang down when you tie it in a bow. And I'm just going to try to get it in the center. Can give it a knot. So this is the piece that we're going to use to attach to the stocking. And then you just need another strand of yarn for your tassel ball, and you could do a couple balls if you want. Really just whatever you feel you like the look of. So to make the tassel ball, you're just going to take your yarn, go once, go twice, and that's just going to stop it from moving as you knot it. So see, you could do another one here if you wanted to do 2 tassel balls. And you'll always find when you do this, one of your strands is gonna lay nice and flat. I just like to take the other one and weave it down through. Okay, and then you can just trim your tails just so they're all even. Remember, you can always give your yarn a steam if you want that nice straight look. But if you do pull from the outside of the ball, it will usually be fine. And if you want to add some wooden beads, you can get wooden beads usually at the dollar store, your local craft stores, from Amazon. I think these ones I had ordered from Amazon, but I'm seeing that there is more stock again in the stores. During COVID, it seemed there was a bit of a shortage. So you can just put these right on here, slide them down. You can add as many beads as you want in whatever colors. I have usually placed wooden beads on my trees, so it's kind of nice to give it that little bit of a rustic touch. And this is nice and long. You can always trim it if you need to. You can take your yarn needle and attach your tassel wherever you want. If you want that it is interchangeable if you're putting your stocking one way or the other. Just now make sure this is folded over how you want it. And then you can just go through sort of the center. You can tie it in a little bow. You can double bow it if you want to make sure that it doesn't come undone. Okay, and that hanging down just gives it some extra, but you can use ribbons, you can use whatever that you like. Or if you don't want them too long, you can give them a trim. So I have these long personalized tags that I'm going to add to hang, but you could also just use some more twine to hang your stocking if you don't have any. And there's different types. You can get the type of tags that you just sew on. This one uses the rivets. So I'm just going to use what I have here. You do need a hammer and use the tools provided in the kit. So you can usually get a little kit with all of the stuff you need for these, and I always have them linked in my Amazon storefront. So depending on which way your stocking is going to hang, again, you may want that goes more to one side. Otherwise, you can just add this push that through. And I've shown how to do this on other videos, but what you're doing is you're just going to use the tools that are provided in the kit to hammer this together. It will stay on its own, but you want to hammer it just so that it doesn't come undone. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell to stay updated on all my new videos and tutorials. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.